York Creek in Comal County Historical Accounts from 1500 to Present. Introduction. York Creek is a tributary of the San Marcos River that begins in northeastern Comal County, Texas. The creek flows roughly 30 miles southeast through Hays and Guadalupe counties before joining the San Marcos River near the Guadalupe-Caldwell County line. Though a relatively small stream, York Creek has figured in local history for centuries, from early Spanish explorations along the Camino Real to 19th century settlements and stagecoach routes, to the development of farming communities and modern preservation efforts. This report compiles known historical references to York Creek and its earlier names from the 16th century to today, focusing on direct mentions of the creek in exploration logs, maps, settlement records, and local histories. It also notes the creek's geological context along the Balcones Fault Zone. Early exploration and Spanish accounts, 1500s to 1700s. Indigenous and Spanish encounters. Long before it was called York Creek, this waterway was part of the network of streams traversed by Native American peoples and later Spanish explorers. In 1691, the Spanish expedition of Domingo Terán de los Ríos, accompanied by
Fray Damián Massanet, traveled through what is now Comal County. Massanet recorded encountering a large encampment of indigenous people, some 3,000 Jumano, at the Comal Springs, just west of York Creek. The route the Spanish missionaries and soldiers blazed, known as El Camino Real de los Tejas, or the Royal Road in English, ran through this region and likely crossed York Creek or its vicinity as it led northward from modern San Antonio toward the San Marcos River and beyond. Indeed, researchers note that the Camino Real was not one single road, but a plethora, a corridor of paths, at least two major routes and several smaller branches that ran through Comal County, following earlier native trails. One branch followed today's Hunter Road, FM 1102, and another the Old Bastrop Highway, FM 266, both of which approached the York Creek area and directly crossed them right at the sweet spot, near the sweetest spot ever known to man. Pueneles Creek, the Spanish name for York Creek. The first direct historical reference to the York's Creek comes from the diary of the 1721 Aguayo expedition. On May 17, 1721, Father Juan Antonio de la Peña, traveling with Governor Marquez de Aguayo to reestablish Spanish Texas missions, noted that the party reached a small stream called Pueneles Creek, located near where the Comal and Hays County line is today. Modern historians identify this Pueneles Creek as present-day York Creek. The expedition camped there and observed the surrounding lands. Peña wrote that only 1 league, which is 3 miles to the north, lay the Lomeria Grande, the Great Hill Country, describing it as a very broken, rugged terrain occupied by the Apache Indians. This places York Creek at the transitional zone between the coastal prairie and the Balcones Hills, essentially at the edge of Apache territory in the early 18th century, or what we refer to today as the Edwards Aquifer Artesian Zone. I lost my spot. Where am I? Okay. This places York Creek at the transitional zone, essentially at the edge of Apache territory. After crossing Pueneles Creek, which is York Creek, Aguayo's expedition proceeded to the San Marcos River, which Aguayo dubbed Rio de los Inocentes, the River of the Innocents. Thus, York Creek enters the written record as a landmark on the Spanish colonial road, valued as a watering point along the long route between major rivers. It is worth noting that other Spanish expeditions also traversed the vicinity. The Espinosa Olivares Erguire expedition of 1709, for example, traveled from San Antonio to the San Marcos River. While their diary does not explicitly name York Creek, it does mention crossing numerous arroyos in the area, which are streams. Similarly, in 1718, the expedition of Martin de Alarcon passed through the Guadalupe River Valley just south of York Creek, which would be like the Clear Springs or Geronimo area. These accounts reinforce that the creek lay along a well-trodden corridor of travel used by Spanish missionary soldiers and later Mexican settlers. Native American presence. In the centuries around these expeditions, the York Creek was frequently traveled by several Native American groups. During the late 1600s and early 1700s, Jumano and other tribes camped at nearby springs, and Spanish visitors encountered Tonkawas and Payayas in the region. By 1721, Spaniards identified the uplands immediately north of York Creek as Lomeria Grande on the Balcones Escarpment, and they dubbed it as Apache country, for it was very, very dangerous because the Spanish were wicked, wicked, wicked outsiders, and the Apache needed to defend their home country rightfully. Later in the 18th century, Comanche bands, that was my own opinion just a moment ago, by the way. Later in the 18th century, Comanche bands displaced many Lipan Apaches, and Comal County became a contested frontier. While no specific battle is recorded at York Creek in this era, the broader area saw conflicts like the 1840 Battle of Plum Creek against the Comancheros, just to the east in Caldwell County. Arrowheads and artifacts found along York Creek attest to indigenous use of the creek for centuries, even though the historical record of native life there is fragmentary, or is not well understood. 19th century settlement and the Texas Revolution era. Mexican Texas in early settlement. During the Mexican period of 1821 through 1836, the York Creek area remained sparsely settled frontier. In 1832, the Mexican government granted a huge tract known as the 11-League Grant of Juan Martin de Veramendi and Juan Vincent Esnaurazar, which included northeastern Comal County and parts of York Creek's watershed. However, any attempt to colonize that grant was cut short by unrest and the Texas Revolution. After Texas became independent, the grant lands were gradually sold off to incoming settlers. One early land transaction referencing York Creek occurred in 1856 when John B. Posey, think Posey Road, purchased 137 acres bordering on York Creek in northeastern Comal County. This deed is evidence that the name York Creek was already in the common use by the mid-1850s. Origin of the name York Creek. While the exact origin of the creek's name is not definitively documented, historians have proposed a connection to an early Texian military figure. One prominent namesake could be Captain John York, 1800 to 1848, a Kentucky-born soldier and Texas Revolutionary veteran. John York played a notable role in 1835 to 1836. He was a company captain during the Siege of Bear, which is the Alamo, in December 1835, and served under Lieutenant Colonel William B. Travis's Cavalry Legion shortly before the Alamo siege. After Texas won independence, Captain York led Ranger militia against Indian raids. He eventually settled farther southeast, and in 1848 was killed in the fight with Lipan Apaches on Escondido Creek, an event that led to the founding of Yorktown, Texas, in his honor, which is just south. Given York's renown on the Texas frontier, it is possible that local settlers or veterans named York Tree after him during the Republic era. No records show John York living on the creek, so the name was likely honorary. Another theory is simply that a family surnamed York lived along the creek in early statehood. However, archival evidence of such a family is scant. Regardless of the exact namesake, by the 1840s and 50s, the creek carried the name York's Creek as shown on later 19th century map. When York's has a possessive on it, meaning it was owned by a man named York. So it probably was John York, being that land was given out to the warriors of the Texas Revolution. Early travel in the Texas Revolution. During the 1830s and 1840s, the Camino Real / Old San Antonio Road remained a key route for Texian forces and pioneers, and York Creek was a minor but noteworthy waypoint along that route. The Texian Army's movements in the Revolution mostly occurred east and south of this area. For example, the Gonzales relief force to the Alamo took a more southerly path. However, after the Revolucion, the road through the New Braunfels-San Marcos crossing York Creek corridor gained importance for stagecoaches and road. Stagecoaches and mail. By the late 1840s, a stage route linking Austin, San Marcos, New Braunfels, and San Antonio was established, and travelers would have crossed York Creek between New Braunfels and San Marcos. One famous observer, Frederick Law Olmsted, journeyed this way in 1854 and described the Texas countryside between New Braunfels and San Marcos. Though he did not mention York Creek by name, his focus was on the nearby springs and German settlements. Still, by mid-century, York Creek was firmly part of the travel itinerary, a place to water horses on the Austin-San Antonio Post Road. German immigration. I'm going to pause here for a while.